former presidential candidate, and former congressman. Let's give it up for Congressman Dr. Ron Paul. Right over here.
They stole my line. No, I was going to say and open up by saying thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation. I like to visit places where I have friends. There are a lot of friends of liberty out here and a lot of friends of peace. So I get energized with coming here. A lot of people give me some credit for coming and helping them along. But the truth is, I get energized. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say that we've heard a lot of speeches, a lot of opinions, and everybody has joined in. I didn't hear anybody saying we need to expand the war. We're not doing well in Ukraine, but we need to take on the Russians. That'll go better. Oh no, we need to go to China, and we're still struggling in Syria. No, nobody's for that. At least I haven't heard them. They didn't get a place. I hope they didn't ever get a place on the platform for that. So this has been, wonderful to come to a place that comes together on this issue. But the one thing is that I've emphasized over the years when speaking in a couple of campaigns is that it's serious. And we just heard this very serious dissertation about how serious the problem we deal with. But, with that, understanding how serious this is, my admonition is always come together and have fun. And I understand a lot of people have been having fun today, meeting new people and joining. I think that's great. I also came because I've been concerned. I've been really worried about something, and I haven't figured it out yet. I'm not into technology and all, but I want to know more about this thing called artificial intelligence. What is that all about? But I figured it out. I put up with it for 23 years in the Congress, and there was a lot of artificial intelligence over there, let me tell you. A lot of innuendos and whatnot. But I wanted to simplify my speech, and of course somebody stole my line. But I think that we can deal with the war issue very simply. And believe me, and I'll explain it more why I believe this, that the answer is end the Fed. I knew there were friends here. Thank you. No, and there's a reason why ending the Fed is a movement towards stopping these wars. How do they finance them? They have to tax the people. Well, they tax them with income taxes and all kinds of taxes, but they never have enough money. They never have enough money, so they have to borrow a lot of money, and then people get tired borrowing the money and loaning the money to the government. So what do? They have this little gimmick called run up the debt and print the money. And if you're on the side of thinking our government is too big, and as libertarians, we generally think the government's too big all over the place, and we'd like to cut back. So if you can't print the money and you can't collect the taxes by debasing the currency and stealing the wealth from the people, unnerving the middle class and the poor, because that's who really pays for this, you couldn't have a war. You couldn't have runaway spending. You couldn't have debts. And we should have it in the Constitution, and Jefferson argued for it. He said that you shouldn't even be allowed to have debt. I think that's a pretty good idea. No debt at all. So that is the way they soften it up, and the people go along with it and figure that, yes, we can do it, but they don't understand what's happening. But why do the people go along with it? And we spent a lot of time over the Mideast wars trying to stop that war. I didn't do too well. They still had the war, and you keep wondering why do they do it? Why does the government do it? It doesn't make any sense. And why do the people go to war? You know, one thing I'd like to suggest is, if we ever got around to thinking that we ought to vote on the wars instead of letting an executive order take us to war, we ought to have a vote. If you think you should have a war, have a vote and make sure that the vote is carried out by the people between 18 and 24. That is the group that gets punished the most, and the others could recreate the wars. But, you know, trying to figure still out of that, I thought I'd ask this guy that sort of just helped destroy Germany, Hermann Göring. You remember him? And he has a famous quote out there. Why do the people do it? And this was after he was convicted at Nuremberg. You know, that he had some interviews. And they said, why did the people do it? And he had two things. He says, one, you got to lie to the people, and they have to be big lies. If they're just routine lies, they won't believe it. But if they're so big, it's so outrageous, they'll say, nobody can believe that's true, and they'd ignore it. But tell big lies and tell them often, so that people will go along with the war. Yeah, but still, why do the people do it? And they march off, and a lot of the wars start off, people were against the war. World War II and certainly the Middle Eastern wars, the people were opposed to it. But and this is Göring, and I'll paraphrase, of course. He says, scare the living daylights out of the people. Tell them they aren't patriotic and they aren't for peace. And embarrass them. He says it works every time in every system of government in every country. Just scare the living daylights out of people. And, you know, I think that type of an analysis applies to our war. Scare the people and patriotism. And I'll bet you there's many people in this audience that have had to be on the receiving end of that type of thing. Oh, you're not for the war, so you're un-American. And they did that once to me in the campaign. And it turned out that they were accusing me of being unpatriotic. I wouldn't support the war. You wouldn't support the troops. But when somebody came up with a statistic, it showed that Ron Paul had the most donations from the military. And I got to thinking, well, why should that be a surprise? I was in the military. They sort of drafted me, and I was in with the people I knew. They were decent people, and the draft was on at that time. And they would say, well, why are you doing this? And the draft, of course, has not been used, but there's other ways of doing it. The book should be clean. We should, if we're not for the draft, why do we have registration? They know where every one of us is. Not every year where you sign up with taxes. Every minute of the day, they know where every one of us is, and then they still make us go through the ritual of registering in case there's a war going on.